Now we finally get into a comparison that seems a little more evened out from the get-go. Does it continue as you take a closer look? Hey, it's Josh Vergara from Android Authority. What's going on, everybody? And this is the Apple iPhone 5S versus the Moto X. As far as form factors go, the Moto X is a closer competitor to the iPhone 5S than many of the Android flagships we've been looking at. At 4.7 inches, it takes on the sizes that we used to see last year, a market that has increasingly been associated with mid-range devices this year. Nonetheless, Motorola's device takes on a soft plastic casing that includes the screen up front, button layout all on one side, and a rounded back. The shape of the back was a very deliberate choice as it helps the phone rest very comfortably in the hand. As such, you get a very easy to handle device in the Moto X. But the smaller 4-inch form factor iPhone is even easier to handle, though you do sacrifice quite a bit of size. The 5S continues the tradition of aluminum material along with the small yet tall display. The power button is up top with the rest of the buttons on the side, and an updated home button is up front, all of which are classic iPhone. The flat front and back, with rounded sides, make this phone easy to hold in one hand, but of course the size is mostly responsible for this. Nonetheless, you shouldn't have any trouble using either phone in one hand. If you really need the smaller phone, just remember what you might be losing in the process. It's in the screen that entails such a sacrifice. In this 4-inch Retina display, the iPhone brings a 1136 by 640 resolution at 326 ppi. This is essentially the same screen as the original iPhone 5 and thus brings the same good performance. Those who want a better display experience via higher resolutions will have to see if the iPhone offers enough. Nonetheless, the color reproduction is good, especially for the newly revamped iOS 7. On the other hand, we have the Moto X with its 4.7-inch 720p screen. It might not be a huge increase in resolution here, but it is definitely noticeable considering the larger screen. The AMOLED display provides great color saturation without going too far, and media consumption is definitely in its wheelhouse. In the end, it comes down to if your eyes require a larger display. The Moto X is not one of the many 5-inch screen devices out there, but its size is still respectable and noticeably larger than the iPhone, which is your alternative if 4.7 inches is somehow still too much for you. We actually get somewhat of a similar story between these two phones in performance. Apple continues to update their own processing packages, but in the case of the Moto X, it didn't just jump into the super powerful updated Snapdragon processor line. It sports an updated Snapdragon S4 Pro that is complemented by the Adreno 320 graphics and finally a couple of low-demand cores made for specific functions like voice recognition. The iPhone 5 gets an updated dual-core A7 that is capable of 64-bit computing, which is something that will become very important in the coming year. Nonetheless, these two phones are very speedy as the iPhone flies through its transitions and elements very well, and the Moto X continues to maintain its very snappy experience. In hardware, it's yet another similar story. Both phones don't have expandable memory or removable batteries. Battery life is very good on the Moto X with its 2200 mAh unit, while the iPhone's 1560 mAh unit is capable of lasting a whole day with the right amount of usage. While the 5S adds in a fingerprint reader and its home button, the Moto X also gets its own addition of always-on voice recognition due to those extra cores. So on the one hand, you can unlock your phone using your thumbprint, while on the Moto X, you can activate it at any time by using just your voice. For the cameras, both phones sport pretty simple cameras with good capabilities. The X doesn't get a ton of features, but is easily accessible by flicking the phone about some. Its app uses swipes to navigate and makes it easy to get pictures in a hurry. The 5S got a very welcome revamped interface that adds new modes like a square mode and slow motion video capture. We'll be taking a closer look at the picture quality later, but I can tell you that the Moto X doesn't quite capture super vibrant pictures despite their great detail. And if the original iPhone 5 was any indication, the pictures out of the 5S will remain very good on their own as well. Finally, in software, it's almost like a pure OS shootout, as the new iOS 7 takes on the almost completely stock version of Android in the Moto X. Despite a very great makeover in iOS 7, the control center, updated multitasking, and notification dropdown are basically layers over what is essentially the same old iOS experience. Veterans will feel right at home while enjoying the new flat and translucent look. Stock Android is often sought after by users, and in the Moto X, it continues its functional simplicity. You get just what you need with the home screens, app drawers, notification dropdown, and Google Now, especially enhanced by the voice commands. If you want the pure experience of either ecosystem, Apple obviously has just the iPhone, while the Moto X stands as one of the main ones available in Android. Whether or not either one provides exactly what you need is a matter of experiencing them for yourself. And so, there you have it. About as close a comparison as we might get with the iPhone and its Android competitors. You get a very classic experience in either phone with a few respective enhancements put in. The good thing is that both phones are actually very accessible, especially considering their size, and thus your choice might be a little bit tougher overall. But in the end, it's a decision that you're going to have to make. For all of the best coverage, keep it tuned to Android Authority, your source for all things Android.